Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Contour community meeting. Today is June 23rd, 2020, and per usual, if you have anything that you want to add into the meeting notes, please do so. I'm going to share the meeting notes in the chat there, and I'll share my screen here. So the first topic of today is actually introducing a new member to the team. Hello, Steve Kriss. Who are you, and what do you do?
Yeah, hey everyone, I'm Steve. You can call me New Steve. Try and keep things clear. Yeah, so I'm joining the Contour team. I was previously working on the Valero project, which is another one of the VMware Tanzu open source projects. And I was the tech lead on that project. So joined Contour last week, and yeah, I'm excited to be here. I've started to dig in and going through lots of examples, lots of reading up on things, and starting to submit a few PRs where I can. So happy to be here.
Awesome. Super happy to have you here, Steve. All right. We got a bunch of things to cover today, so let's get started. First one is stevesloka.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about the new Ingress Class stuff coming up for I always say the V1 beta 1 Ingress, but now it's going to go to V1. So in Kubernetes 19, they're going to bump the V1 beta 1 Ingress, which has been there in beta since I don't know how many releases, a few years now. It's been a while. So they're that's going to become V1, proper V1. In doing that, there's a couple of things that got changed. So one is they added this idea of an Ingress class. So if you're all familiar, when you wanted to have multiple controllers in your cluster, you would annotate your Ingress resources with this Ingress class. And it was never consistent because it was just an annotation. And folks, I know Contour supports, I think, 3 different versions of that. One's a Kubernetes annotation, one's a Heptio one, and one's a Project Contour one. So the idea of this is having a new Ingress class resource. And with that resource, you can define what controller manages that resource. So in our example, this will be Contour. And then when you create your Ingress resource now, you reference the class that you're related to. And this is kind of gets around how the annotations worked previously. So there's some docs here, and then in the notes, I linked to a blog post that came out as well, which talks about all the same features as well. So just showing everyone that we're adding these bits and bytes to Contour now. I think it's the other one. Yeah, that one. So if you're interested, this is coming up now. I just had to work out some of the logic, because now you have to support annotations and then Ingress class, and then annotations take precedence over the Ingress class to let you migrate easier and stuff. So we'll get all that worked out. And once we have that, then we'll write that up and have that out for everyone. So just knowing that that's coming. Also, this Ingress class model fits into how the new service APIs kind of works, where you have a class as well, and then you have resources off of that class. So so it's something to look forward to as those come to fruition.
Awesome.
So that's that one, yeah.
Any questions on that one? All right. Next up.
Yeah, so the next one is, I think Contour, back when Dave Cheney started this, there was, I believe he was, we were the first or one of the few to have XDS in Envoy. So Envoy, when it first started, was actually like a REST API. So Envoy would go and pull the control plane for configuration updates. And then we switched to this gRPC connection, which allowed the polling to go away. Now we have a rich connection between Envoy, which is the client, and then Contour, which is the server. So that's worked well for us for a while, but we have come up with some issues around different scenarios with different users of Contour. So some relate to how updates get passed off to clusters and endpoints. So if, say, you did like a blue-green deployment or something like that, there are some times where the updates don't happen in the proper order. So again, we're looking into some ways we can solve that. So some of these are, let's move to an existing implementation that's out there in the world. So Lyft has one. It's called Go Control Plane. So we're looking at what that would look like if we moved to that implementation. So instead of running all the fixes into Contour proper, we can upstream those efforts and then together have a better implementation. So this was some work that I was doing to help or see what this would look like if we move to it. So it's still heavy work in progress, just because ripping out all of that XDS code in Contour and plumbing this in is no small feat in a way. But it looks pretty promising so far. I actually have it working, so if you run this, it'll work, but all the tests fail. So we'll see. But the other thing it might let us do is move to ADS, which just today Contour opens up a gRPC connection per resource. So for clusters, for CDS, endpoints, EDS, and all those different things, Envoy will open up a different connection to Contour for that. ADS would let us share that connection and then proxy all those resources over one. I believe it also will help do some ordering so that if you pass, say, a set of endpoints without clusters attached, it will hold on to that until all the resources exist and then pass it off as one big payload. So just some work there. We're going to look and see how that might fit. Really, to users, there should be no change. It should be a seamless change behind the scenes, but just some work we're doing to improve Contour.
Awesome, thank you. And I love your comment. It works, but all the tests fail.
Yeah.
I see Steve Kriss unfortunately dropped. He will most likely be back. So we're gonna move over to the last portion here, which is yours as well, Steve.
Sure, yeah. So again, this is just some things coming up. Envoy announced some more security issues. If you click on that link in there, for Envoy, I think it's coming out the end of the month, June 30th, I believe. Yes, June 30th. So that'll come out soon. So there's some defects in there, some CVEs, I guess that'll get resolved. So just to plan ahead, so everyone can understand, hey, these should come out and you should upgrade. We'll have another release for Envoy 1.14.3. We're currently at 1.14.2. And then if you happen to be on older versions of Contour, you can upgrade those previously. Because what's nice is that the Envoy team is pushing out releases backwards. So 14, 13, and 12, I'll get patched, which is nice. So just a heads up for that in case folks want to plan ahead for that change to happen in their environments.
Sounds good. Any questions on that one? Right. Steve Kriss, you're back. You want to talk about your topics here?
Yeah, sure. Just wanted to call out a couple of the items that I've worked on over the last few days. So the first one was as I was going.
I think we lost you again, Steve. Yep.
Yeah, I think we lost him. So I can help fill it in unless you want to wait for him to come back.
Do.
Yeah, so I think part of what Steve was doing was working on understanding a bit of how Contour, how our HTTP proxy resources work with inclusion. So inclusion lets you include path prefixes to other resources in Kubernetes or in your cluster, as well as header conditions, right? So you can route on any kind of header that's in the request. So typically that could be like a content type header or a user agent to understand, hey, is this Chrome or Firefox, that sort of thing. We found an issue where if you define multiple routes with the same prefixes and had the header conditions overlap, then you'd get kind of inconsistent routing. So say you had a path for /foo, and you say the header contains Chrome, but the header does not contain Firefox. Like there could be some conflicting routes you can create. So I think Steve had some issues or some changes there to help address some of those things.
Awesome.
Again, super edge case kind of things, but things that you could run into potentially. And I believe the next one is similar.
Yeah, I can try and jump in here if you can hear me okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and thanks for covering that one, Steve. Yeah, the next one was just adding some more validation. So I noticed that there were certain kind of logically invalid combinations of header conditions that you could add. So you could have a route that said, route requests here if the header both contains foo and does not contain foo, which logically is impossible. So I just added a couple of additional validations around that to ensure that there were no sort of contradictory exact and not exact, or contains and not contains conditions on the same route. So definitely another edge case, but as I was just kind of playing around and trying to understand things, this came up for me, and it seemed like a useful validation to add.
That's great. Thank you. Is there anything else anyone wants to add to the community meeting today?
I'd like to ask if there's an update on 2225, which is adding some more configuration knobs, particularly around timeouts, because that's something we're struggling with at the moment, is trying to debug why some clients with long-running connections seem to have their connections being terminated. It's not necessarily on the Envoy or Contour side, but at least some of the timeouts seem to be hard-coded rather than configurable.
Yeah, I know. We chatted about that before, and we were going to add some more some values. This is probably a good update here. Yeah, so Nick proposed some changes to the Contour configuration file, so we can help allow you to customize some of those. I don't believe that any PRs have come up yet to do that, but we do have it kind of scoped out in a way. Okay. So yeah, so yeah, I think it's just a matter of doing it now at this point. So
okay, watch the space.
Yeah, is there a particular one that you're interested in? Was it request timeout you mentioned?
So request timeout I think is covered. It was the one of the idle timeouts.
Okay.
That's hard-coded to 60 seconds at the moment in
Okay.
the HTTP connection manager. It's referenced in 2413. But in other thing I wanted to add is just a word of thanks from one of your users. It's we run quite busy Kubernetes clusters with Contour and Envoy, and every release gets better. So you have some happy users out there.
That's wonderful.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Keith.
I have another comment to bring the mood back down. A question from feedback from another user. So, we're trying to go through the process of we finally got to 1.3. We want to go to 1.4, 1.5, and each time we get to these releases, we find an issue that sort of holds us off to the next release. And now we're waiting on 1.6 to resolve an issue we've got with running on multiple ports. The question is, and I was going to raise this through our sort of formal VMware channels too, but can we, when we get these issues, so we're going to try and build from master more frequently to actually test this stuff out before we actually get the releases. But where we find challenges with releases is there any openness to doing dot releases afterwards to fix issues? So for the multiple ports issue, James merged to fix very quickly, but we're still waiting for the release to come out. I know you've done some dot releases for the Envoy CVEs, but what's the willingness to do dot releases for functionality fixes or bug fixes?
Hey, Michael. So I think that, we can take that on a case-by-case basis. We certainly don't want to commit to dot releases, given the fact that we've actually already committed to a fairly frequent cadence of patches on a monthly basis. But I do understand the need, you don't want to take in a new feature, for example, with a point release, if all you're needing is a bug fix on something else. We'll can commit to anything right now, but what we can do is we can take it on a case-by-case and maybe do a trial run and see how that looks like. But, for the most part, I would think that it does satisfy your case that if we have a monthly patch like we do right now, and we address, key high priority bug fixes and including the introduction of some new scenarios, outside of this one case here, has that not worked for you?
Yeah, there's been a couple of cases. So, I think I I'm trying to remember the version numbers now. There was the HTTP2 coalescing issue that I think James was involved with that one. That stopped us from going to 1.5, I think. So it just, maybe it's just been the last couple of releases, but it feels like we sort of wait for a release, it drops, and then we find the issue, which then defers us again. So we're sort of now a fair way behind. So yeah, that's the main thing.
So,
Okay.
Michael, there's been a decent amount of internal debate, because if we start to release patches for former versions, then that implies a support policy for more than we might be able to take on, as far as the open source community. And so that's sort of the balance we've been considering. And we haven't talked about it in probably a couple months, but that's the topic that keeps coming up. But I think your feedback's really good for next time we talk about it, which I think will be soon.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Just like clear take.
All right, awesome. Any other questions, comments for today?
Actually, I did have one, maybe for Michael. Michael, I know there was the vote, the CNCF process, and the email vote had gone out, and I see there's been a couple of updates from projects. What's the latest on the CNCF process?
We're about 2 votes shy from getting to incubation stage in CNCF. I think, the CNCF TOC has been fatigued with emails and lots of things happening organizationally. So we haven't been pushing hard. I don't know if you're aware, but also I'm the maintainer for Harbor. So I've been trying to get Harbor in since that was a graduation project, and that announcement, that's what I was doing, like literally. I was late to this meeting. I had to review some press releases, but Harbor graduated today officially. So now we can shift our focus to say, hey, you remember me? let's finish off Contour as well.
Okay, sure.
It's just a matter of getting folks to focus on one project at a time. A lot of these projects, they have 20, 30-page documents that everyone has to review, and this time is scarce, so it's kind of hard to allocate time to do this, and we haven't been pushing much because we understand that this is between COVID and other issues happening in the US and all this project stuff going on and changing the CNCF head. I think it's understandable that things are going to be delayed. In general, projects take anywhere between 3 weeks or a little bit more to actually finish the voting. So we're getting close to a month now, but there's reasons behind this.
Sure, makes sense. Thank you.
Are you waiting for this for any specific reason, or just basically you're looking forward to open governance and all the other benefits that come with CNCF like we do as well?
Yeah, no, just out of interest. I'm hoping it gets over the line, obviously, but yeah, just interested in sort of where it's at.
Absolutely, thank you.
It'll certainly make it easier for other organizations to contribute when it's a CNCF project. It just makes the paperwork easier.
Absolutely. Well, hoping that more organizations can contribute to us, whether we're in CNCF or not. But yeah, I do understand that when you have a governing body that's a foundation that's very successful, it encourages more contributors.
Yeah, because you only have to go through the process once, and once the CNCF is kind of onboarded, then all of the projects can fall under that.
Agreed.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it as well. All right, any last takers on questions, comments for today? All right. With that, thank you all for joining the Contour community meeting this June 23rd, 2020. Have a fantastic rest of the week, everyone. See you next week.